So here is my video presentation on my experience interning at FGCU Athletics. So to start things off, I just wanted to give a facility tour and show kind of where I spent most of my time this semester, as well as the equipment I had the opportunity to work with. So coming into the weight room in the middle section is where all of our squat racks are. We have about 20 in total. And then surrounding that is where all of the other extra equipment is going to be. So as you can see over here to our right, we have some box jump and pads, some trap bars. And then going back on this side, we have our squat racks with TRX units in between each, and then some bands. The squat racks where we perform all of our major lifts, the squat, big lifts, bench press, and whatnot. And then those are the trap bars. And then in the middle section here is where all of our dumbbells are. So we have dumbbells that range from 5 pounds all the way to 125. We can just perform some more free weight movements over here. And then in the very back of the gym, we have our machinery and our cables with the different attachment pieces there. And then some assault bikes in the back. And with the machines, these are often used by our injured athletes. This just helps them help them continue the staying in shape, building muscle, and just recovering quicker. And then right there in front of us is the Vertec. This is where we perform our testing for the vertical jump. And then we have our lat pull down, some more box jumps, and then some slam balls. And then if you look the reflection, we had our kettlebells there as well. And then here to our left, right here is where our hurdles are, and then the bars for the dips. And then if you look straight ahead, we have our sleds. This is where we can do our sled pushes, our sled pulls, and we have a long turf that we can use for other movements. Each line represents 5 yards. So this is where our athletes normally run their warm up. We can do other things such as assessments and whatnot here as well. So this is just kind of showing you what the facility looks like. It's just recently been renovated, so it's really nice and basically has everything you would need in a weight room. Move on from that, just kind of reflecting on my role here as an intern. I started off and my first task was to build relationships with athletes. The reason behind this was to earn the athletes' trust so that I can eventually start to cue them. So once I did gain their trust, I had the opportunity to coach and cue the athletes. If they were doing a movement incorrectly, I would be able to show them how to do it or make the correction, as well as just teaching new movements and lifts to them. And once I got proficient at that, I was then able to lead the entire weight session where my supervisor just kind of stayed back and I was basically in charge of running the lift. And in a similar manner, I progressed towards leading the conditioning sessions that happened as well. So to kind of get into some of the things that I really learned coming into the internship, the first one I wanted to talk about was the creation of annual programs. So I believe this is an area where I had my greatest improvement. From the first program I wrote to the last, I feel like I had improvement in each one. When I created that first program, it took me like 2 hours to do and ended up being my worst program. And the last program I created was my best program and it only took me like 30 minutes. So just shows like the progress I made throughout the semester. In terms of program creation, I learned that this is the basis. So you want to have a full body / power movement. You have your knee dominant movement, hip dominant movement, horizontal press, horizontal pull, vertical press, vertical pull, and core. Core you can break down further into anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-lateral flexion, and anti-rotation. So over here, I have an example of one of the programs I created. And I believe this was like the second or third program I created, but not a program that I'm really proud of. As you can see, I have some X's, and this is just learning that I wouldn't really incorporate those lists. The programs I want to talk more about in detail include this one here and this one. So this program right here was the very first program I created. The task was to create a program for a tennis athlete in their preseason, and I just completely messed it up. I ended up creating an off-season program, because these movements were way too complex to give to a beginner athlete, because this is either freshmen that are coming in or transfers. So this program was just not it, and it was a great learning experience. And then I ended up creating this at the end of the semester. And the goal behind this one was to create a program for a high school volleyball athlete in their preseason as well. So this is just working with high school athletes that are new to lifting, probably for the first time. And so I kind of switched up the entire structure and how I would create the program. But as you can see, this one has very little marks. And I received great feedback on this program compared to this one. So next, going into Olympic lifts. Coming into this internship site, I could not perform Olympic lifts for my life. I really struggled, but after coming here and learning it even further, I've made great progress. So just to talk about Olympic lifts a little bit, it's a vital component of the athletes' programs. The major lifts they perform here at FGCU include the hang clean and rack clean. On a lift like this, a lot can go wrong, and therefore form is of utmost importance. So we've learned the Olympic lifts through two different teaching styles. So the first is how USAW teaches it. So they have their major lifts, which include the snatch, clean, and jerk, and then they break it down into 5 different stages. And you would start in stage 1, perform each movement. Once you can do each movement, you would then move on to stage 2, and then go to stage 3, 4, and 5. And we went through every single progression with our supervisor and performed each lift. The second way FGCU teaches it, or the second way is how FGCU teaches it, and it's similar to how USAW does it, but it's much more simpler. So they break it down into 3 levels. So you have level 1, 2, and 3, and the coach will basically just call out a number, and the athletes will get into that position. So when they say level 1, which is the start position, the athletes will lower themselves and the bar to the knees, and then they would say 2, which is a shrug, where they would do it into triple extension and really just shrug those shoulders up. So I have a video here that'll kind of demonstrate how that works. Break it down first, we'll teach position 1, which is looks like this, Mario's hands. Once athletes nail that down, we go into position 2, which is shrug. And then from there, we'll teach both of this here. So we'll go to the 1 and 2, like that. And once we master that, we'll introduce the third movement. That'll look like this. And once they get all that down, we'll slowly introduce the catch and spend most time. So that'll look like this. So we go 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, number 3, which is normally a high pull, once the athletes become proficient with that, the high pull would just become the catch. So this is how they teach the athletes here at FGCU, and it's just a much more simplified way of how USAW does it. And here are some bonus clips. This is me doing the power clean during the spring semester of my junior year. And as you can see, or as you will see, the form is horrendous. I mean, I could just not do it. I don't know why. But I'll show you one more time. Yep. And then this is me doing the lift just a month or 2 ago. Much more progress. I'm still not there 100% as I'm missing that last bit of hip extension, but it's much better than what it used to be. Yeah, that's my current form, so making good progress there. Then lastly, I want to get into a little bit about high velocity training. So right here at FGCU, we have iPads and sensors. So this sensor right here tracks velocity. So you would wrap this around the bar and it tracks how fast the bar is moving in meters per second. Over here is a program called Dasher where we can run fitness assessments. So you can do pro agility, shuttle drills, L drill, sprints, and these are the sensors that go with this. And it's just much more accurate than timing using a stopwatch. So to touch more on the iPads and the sensors in terms of the velocity training, this is a setup for the bench press with velocity training. So we have, there's two ways that we can progress an athlete from the regular compound lift. The first is the incorporation of bands. And what bands will do is it adds increased resistance at the top of the movement. So if an athlete is performing the bench press, at the very top, the bands will add a total of 40 additional pounds to the movement. And then there's different bands for the squat, the trap bar deadlifts, and the jumps. So you can even do banded jumps to add some to incorporate some resistance. And then you have the iPads, which will track velocity or how fast the bar is moving. So the athletes will be given a range depending on the day. And for example, the range might be 0.7 and 1. So the goal is for the athlete to move that bar as fast as they can and keep it within that range. To show you how that kind of works, I have a video here. It is a little blurry. So start there. And on this one, I went a little bit slower on purpose. And the number I got was 0.63. So if an athlete were to do this with max effort, you would basically ask them to take some weight off so that they can increase that velocity. The second rep I do here, I move the weight much faster. So my number is at 1.07. So if an athlete were to do this, it means that the weight is too light and that they can add weight on to get it within that 0.7 to 1 range. So this is just one way we've incorporated bands throughout the semester. We can do this with squats, with trap bar deadlifts, and other lifts. So review of the semester. So throughout the semester, we had additional tasks that we performed. During our third week, we had to choose a team that we wanted to work with to complete all these assignments. So I chose tennis. So based off of that, I had to create a needs analysis for tennis. And the needs analysis just kind of consisted of the major injuries that can happen in the sport, the common movements in the sports, different positions, the energy systems involved, the different muscle groups involved, and just kind of learning more about the sport itself. And then I had to create a dynamic warm-up for the sport, which you can see over here to the left. This was just the warm-up that I created. And then I had to make a full conditioning program and a 4-week jump training program. So here is the jump training program I created. In order to make this, we had to read an article that talked about how to create a program for jump training. And in the article, it talked about how like they would progress from 3x5 to 4x5 to 5x5. And I basically just used that to create my program. And then when I came to present this to my supervisor, we had a good discussion on it. And I learned that you wouldn't really want to do a 5x5 box jump with athletes. It may be beneficial, but athletes don't want to do 5 sets of 5 on box jumps. So if you were to give them this, they would rush through it and they wouldn't get the full benefits of doing it. Therefore, when it comes to programming jumps, you probably want to just do 3x5 and just maybe do 4x5, but you never want to go up as much as 5x5. So this was a good learning experience in terms of how to create a jump program, but also that everything you read doesn't mean that you incorporate that into your programs. And here I have my conditioning program for the athletes, a 4-week, 2-day conditioning program. And the goal was to just mimic some sport movements, like the lateral movements, and then match the energy systems that they would use during when they're actually playing a game in their conditioning. And to sum up what I'm walking away with throughout the semester, my biggest lesson has to be more confident. I've taken all the courses. I know the material. I know what I'm doing. I just need to be more confident in myself. And that's just something that's going to come with more experience. But that's going to be my biggest lesson, my biggest takeaway. And then the importance of body language and posture. It's important to make sure you have your shoulders back with a nice, you're standing nice and tall, your arms aren't crossed or in your pockets. You either want your hands to be to the side or behind your back, just so that you can look more approachable to the athletes. And then just kind of the importance of focusing on what you say and how you say it. So I just had this, I had this situation with an athlete. where they had a minor mistake and I was correcting them, and I didn't realize that I did it in an aggressive way. So it kind of startled the athlete and it made them think that they were making a big mistake. At that instant, I kind of learned that I need to be careful with not only what I say, but how I say it, because it can really impact how the athlete is going to perceive it. And then I learned the importance of practicing what you preach. So if you want your athletes to show up on time, you have to show up on time. If you want your athletes to come in every day, make no excuses, and train hard, you also have to be willing to do the same. And then discovering your coaching philosophy. So every coach will have their own beliefs and will have different expectations from their athletes. So if I did want to become a strength coach, I would want to find out what my philosophy is and what my set of expectations are for my athletes. And then lastly, the importance to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. The thermometer only displays the temperature, and the thermostat sets the temperature. So you'll have times where athletes don't want to come in and lift, especially when they have a 6 a.m. lift. So in those situations, and in almost in all situations, it's important for you as a coach to be the thermostat and set the temperature so that the athletes then will give their best effort day in and day out. But this really concludes my presentation. It's been a great semester here at FGCU. I feel as though I've learned a lot, and I've really improved in my ability to coach athlete. And while confidence is something I need to work on, I've made great strides throughout the semester. And I can say with full confidence that I'm leaving much more knowledgeable than I was when I first came in. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching.